everybody, and welcome to the first ever public rockumentary here at Heysham Head on Morecambe Bay. Now today we're going to be looking at a small section of the beds here to see what kind of environment we had going on here and what kind of fossils and structures we can see here. Now of course there's a lot of potential to the whole coast here with some amazing massive sandstones up here, but right now we're going to be looking at the shale and sandstone beds here at Heysham Head to see what kind of paleo environment we had in the past and how it shaped the coast here today. Our first piece of evidence we're going to be looking at here on the coast is this bed right here. Yes, this specific one. Now what's interesting about this bed is it shows a shape we know as concave.
Sorry, editing Rockumentarist here. I know this probably isn't a good start for the first point of the video, but you can clearly see that is not the concave part of the bed. It's actually the part to the left of me. I sincerely apologise for my total stupidity. Just to clarify, all points I make are still completely valid. I'm just pointing at the wrong part of the bed. Okay, continue.
Which means that we've got what's here a fluvial environment. The concave shape comes from erosive processes from the water in something like a river, for example, where the water will carve out a concave shape in the bed, and it will then create a lens where deposition can happen. Not only this, but sometimes concave shapes or lens shapes can reflect the shape of a meander in a bend. When the sediment is deposited on the bend, it reflects the shape of the bend through the cross section. Now another piece of evidence we have going on here is a lepidodendron fossil. This fossil comes to an ancient type of tree. But hold on, didn't I just say fluvial? Trees don't grow in rivers. Well, you'd be correct. Now you may be thinking to yourself, well, surely maybe there's just a tree by a river that just happened to fall in and get fossilised. But that is not how geology works, unfortunately. But don't worry, we'll come to a conclusion on what this is eventually.
Now, as a fun little fact for you about these fossils, we don't actually know what part of the lepidodendron it comes from because people are still debating it. Most people say root, but some people say it comes from the bark or even the leaves of this ancient tree.
Now coming further up the beach, we can see that the beds haven't changed much in their composition, and they do look a little straighter. However, it's still important to actually talk about what's going on here at the beds, because I only mentioned the lens-shaped bed up there. Now on the shale beds that we've got interbedded with the sandstones, we've got what we call symmetrical ripple marks. These ripple marks come from waves rolling over the rock. No, hold on. That means we've got marine and fluvial and terrestrial. What on earth is going on? Well, let's look at the sandstone, maybe they'll tell us something. As we can see here in the sandstone, we've got what we call bioturbulations. There's a particularly lovely U-shaped one right here, and it is formed from creatures with shells such as clams burrowing through the sediment. So, marine or fluvial. I don't really know where my shells are located, unfortunately. Something also notable about this sandstone is that it has what we call a coarsening up sequence, where the sand grains get more coarse as we go up the bed, from finer here to coarser here, and we also have cross beds here, formed from the movement of either water or wind, moving dune sands up and then down again. So, fluvial, definitely. But why do we have fluvial and marine and terrestrial? Well, my friend, this is what we call a delta cyclothem. Now, it's not a very perfect representation of one, but it's still one nonetheless, and it's what happens when a delta is about here, and there is a change in sea level. For example, the terrestrial parts we see with the lepidodendron fossils are when the sea had receded and had regressed and was far out, whereas the marine we see is where we had the sea level high and therefore was in here at the beach. This is called Wolfer's Law, where beds that are found horizontally adjacent to each other can be found vertically in the geological column. For example, we have the marine shales with the ripples, we have the fluvial sandstones with the crossbeds and the bioturbulation, and we have the beds that contain the lepidodendron fossils that would usually have been found next to each other on the beach, but due to the movement of the sea have been found on top of each other. So, why is this beach so geologically different to the rest of Heysham Head? Well, we can look no further than this fault right here. Now, for those of you who don't have a geological background, a fault is what happens when the stress exceeds the strength of the rock, causing it to be displaced. This can happen due to things such as tectonic forces, or the Hulk when he's in an angry mood. What we have here shows the different beds that we've just explained from our delta cyclothem, but also a massive sandstone bed. Yeah! So, here we have what's called the hanging wall, which is our massive sandstone. Whereas our delta beds are our footwall here. And since the massive sandstone has moved down, and the massive sandstone is our hanging wall, it's what we'd call a normal fault. And therefore, this means that this was formed by tensional stresses of the rock being pulled apart. And there you have it, a short but sweet overview here of the beds here at Heysham Head and Morecambe Bay. I'd like to thank you so much, both geologists and non-geologists alike, for coming to watch here. And I'd urge you to stay, especially if you want to learn more about geology. Whilst I can't plan to always make rockumentaries since it takes a lot of planning and driving, I can definitely make other videos about geology talking about features such as folds and faults, how to take dip and strike measurements, and other geological mishaps. I'd like to thank you again, and I'll see you again in the next video.
Tiny like that. Is it recording? Oh, sorry.
That's a river. And trees don't definitely live in river. Ugh. I'm going to retake that whole thing. Going on here, where we have marine shales with the cross-bedded... retake that. And the rock will move either vertically or horizontally or diagonally, depending on how it feels, I guess. Such as through kind of tectonic forces, almost. No, not almost, exactly. Right, redo that again, sorry. And there you have it, a short but sweet overview here of Heysham Head here at Morecambe Bay.
Stop, my thumb was covering.